So welcome back. We'll be demonstrating the Rnav X-ray approach RMP runway 06 into Ballina. We'll be using the RMP 0.10 with the decision out. If you've watched the last video regarding RMP LNAV VNAV, in principle the majority of the things still apply. There is a 36-page training presentation that you can find for VOS members on the website, and we're using the proprietary Ballina nav data for this approach. The main differences for the RMP approach, LNAV VNAV, to this RMP approach is that this procedure utilises actual RMP capability. There are smaller tracking tolerances laterally. The obstacle elevation areas have been checked in the design phase of this, and also the radius to fixed legs are included, the RF. It is important to note that this is not appropriately or properly modelled in the current version of the B737, but due to some excellent coding work by one of our members, we've been able to get something very similar in place. The minimum equipment that is required for this approach reflects the additional redundancy that is required. A reminder that RMP AR approaches procedures are QNH based, so the correct setting of the QNH when passing the transition level is critical. Also, from an RMP AR approach, missed approach, they're designated to account for 2 times the RMP containment, and this differs from the RMP LNAV VNAV, which have missed approach procedures that are designed on a dead reckoning containment area. An important note: if the weather conditions are such that the highest RMP would permit a successful approach, then the coded highest value should be used. So in this particular instance there are 2. There's an RMP 0.10 and an RMP 0.30. For demonstration purposes and in light of the weather here today, we'll be using a runway 06 with an RMP of 0.10. ICAO certainly encourages pilots to use the largest possible RMP to reduce the possibility of inadvertent cross-track alerts on approach. If the weather conditions require the use of the minima from a lower RMP, then it would need to be manually entered at the briefing stage. As we know, 0.3 is the default. We'll be using 0.10. Inside the volume A1, again, you will find an RMP checklist. To quickly review as we start down on our track inbound from Sydney into Ballina. For RMP AR approach, we need to have 2 ADIRUs in nav, which we have, 2 CDUs, 2 PFDNDs, 2 GNSSs, 2 flight directors, 2 DEUs, 2 FMCs, 2 radio altimeters, 2 generators, one of which can be the APU, 1 EGPWS and 1 autopilot. That is all confirmed for aircraft today. In yellow I've highlighted the differences between an LNAV VNAV approach and an RMP AR approach. So the applicable approach RMP needs to be set if it's below 0.3. As a reminder, progress, page 4, and in this page we can set 0.1 and a vertical RMP of 125. That's the next item done. We'll check select the DME updating is off. Progress, nav status, page 2, DME update is off. We will ensure that both MCP course selectors are set to the final approach track and that the PFD barrow minimas are set to the applicable decision out. So we've got 062 on both, for 350 feet is set, remembering this is a DA so we don't need to add our 50 feet. We've checked the actual aerodrome QNH from an approved source, and we've selected the approach by name and not modified the procedure. We've briefed the approach, and part of that is to check that the temperature is within the charted limits. on this approach the temperature range is from -2 degrees to 49 degrees, which is fine. We also need to check the tracks, distances and altitudes, the speed constraints, the RF legs, the flyover waypoints, and they agree with the charter procedure, which we've done. And the difference again is here highlighted in yellow, that we have some speeds that we mustn't exceed. 240 at the intermediate and initial segments, 160 on final, 240 in a missed approach. If the chartered limiting airspeeds are more restrictive, then we will use them, and in this particular case we have a restriction of 190 knots at November Alpha 410, so that is more restrictive. We will check the vertical path angle, which we've done, which is 3 degrees. 3.08 is set. We're approaching the initial fix, so I'm going to descend us down to 400. And I'll just show you on the screen just quickly the conduct of the approach. Just as a reminder that we need to have terrain selected with the VSD, which I have. Also, the note here that no direct to clearances should be accepted to a waypoint prior to the final approach fix. May be accepted, sorry, to a waypoint prior to the final approach fix, but no later than the latest intercept point. And because November Alpha 410 is the start of an RF leg there, we wouldn't accept a direct to into there. We've checked that the RMP approach values will revert to 0.1, and in the event of a missed approach we'll check that LNAV is engaged, and the other criteria is in case of a missed approach we will do so if we do have a dual RA failure. Flaps 1.
Flaps 1.
So we do have a requirement for 190 knots and 3200 at November Alpha 410. Just going to change this one to 190 or below for the next one, and that'll just start us reducing. Flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
FMC speed, VNAV path.
Check.
So we've started our turn. Monitoring our RMP actual of 0.06 at present, and the actual navigation performance for vertical is currently 68, which is well within limits. Gear down.
Gear down.
Flaps 15.
Flaps 15.
A reminder that from the final approach fix, which on this particular chart starts at PUMIP, that we need to be at a maximum of 160 knots, which is looking good at this stage. The missed approach altitude is 2,000 feet, so once we get to 1,700 or below, we can recycle our MCP to 2,000. Now the reason why we have to have terrain on is if we had a total failure here, we would need to use our own reckoning reference the terrain on the map here, especially in a place like Queenstown, to keep us clear of terrain in weather such as this. Flaps 25.
Flaps 25.
Flaps 40.
Flaps 40.
Landing checklist.
Landing checklist. Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Flaps 40 green light.
Landing checklist complete.
Cleared.
Check.
Okay, so we're now inside the final approach fix. We are configured for landing.
Final approach fix side check. The missed approach altitude not set.
Okay, good reminder. 2,000 is set.
Stable.
Missed approach altitude set.
Runway.
A reminder, we will need to disconnect our auto throttle as well, otherwise the speed will run away on touchdown. My aeroplane.
Check.
Set wipers on.
Whippers coming on.
Landing.
Check. Speed brake up. Reversers normal. "60 knots. Auto brake disarmed.
Manual braking.
Check.
And again, we made it. See you in the next video.